Hey everyone, welcome to Pearl by Heartfulness, and I'm Lakshmi, your host. In the last session with our speaker Prem in the Heartful Leader series, we covered the importance of reputation and the factors that contribute to it and how to develop and manage these more consciously. Today we will cover part 2 of nurturing reputation, which is addressing the past and healing reputations. Now, none of us are perfect. And I think if you realize that, that's just a great start. I'm sure you'd agree with me. Now, have you been aware of times when you're, violating a company policy, or you're just caught up in the wrong place at the wrong time, or said something offensive, or typed something offensive online? You've been inappropriate at times to your friends, maybe hurt your friends, your employees, or your relationships, made them angry. And not just that, but we also keep falling back into harmful or old behaviors. And needless to say that this has an impact on our reputation. Now, that's where this session would help cover the importance of nurturing reputation by reflecting on what we can improve and by taking steps in that direction. Now, a quick housekeeping announcement for all of you. As some of you may be aware, this is a recorded session, but myself and Prem will be online to take your questions on the day of the premiere. So you may type in your questions in the chat box at any time during this webinar. Again, I'm very happy and delighted to welcome back Premkishore Shivakumar, who's a computer architect and is currently a technical leader for a product family at Arm from Austin, Texas. Prem, again, very nice to have you back. How are you today?
Doing very good. I'm very happy to be here, Lakshmi, and looking forward to continuing your conversation from last time.
Thank you. So first of all, coming back to the second part of the topic, which is healing reputations, why would a need arise?
Let's start with a very simple example. We talk about more profound things, but let's say as a parent, you've told your son or your daughter that you're going to take them to the football game, or you're going to attend their performance, right? And something comes up in the last minute, you have work to do, and you say you're not going to be able to make it, right? And you can see how disappointed they are, right? And say, okay, there was one time, maybe, he's busy, he's going to try to make it. But let's say you make a pattern of that, right? You're not able to go to that. That starts affecting your relationship. That starts affecting, the fabric of what your interaction is with them, right? Again, very simple example, but that says how you can start, damaging some of these. It could be with a friend, right? It was your best friend, you grew up together, but you don't find you don't find time to connect with them much anymore, right? And you say, yeah, I'm busy, life happens, but it does affect the relationship. It does affect how they perceive, right? These are simple examples, but this, at this point, we have to reflect and see how we can heal these relationships. How can we make a difference? Similar things happen in the workplace. I think they are not that different, right? When you are behaving as a leader at the workplace, your peers are observing you, right? Your team is observing you, and how you react under situations. You may think you may be aware, you may not be aware, as you mentioned, how self-aware we are able to be. But there are patterns of behavior, I think, that you alluded to in the introduction, right? And those patterns start reflecting, and that reputation. So, the need arises, the real need is for us to be able to reflect and see what patterns am I getting into, right? That can be simple personal relationships or professional relationships, and see how we can improve.
Awesome, Prem. I see what you mean, actually. Now, at a larger scheme of things, we have noticed that societal values change. And as a heartful leader in a workplace, should we maintain our personal brand, or should we change with time? What are your thoughts? Particularly, I'm looking at, things like women, in workplaces, or the LGBTQ, things like that. Would you talk about that?
Sure. I think it's a great question to look at this from a larger perspective. And I just want to take a step back and, when I hear your question, there are a few different thoughts that come to mind. One is things do change, right? And as something that made sense a while ago in terms of the context then might completely not be applicable anymore. Our economic structures might have changed, our, science is there, just societal structures might have changed. It is also possible that some things which really made sense some time back, we just don't understand them anymore. The understanding has been lost, right, over a period of time. So we have to be humble in some cases and say, maybe there was a reason to this before, but we just don't have that understanding. So it is okay to look at it from a fresh perspective with that humility, right? We are trying to understand why this was there. In some cases, it can be a little not so nice, where maybe it was advantageous to a certain section of people to keep that status quo, right? Or like you said, values come into play, and then there is a lot of friction, right? Some of the areas you talked about. In all these cases, I think if I look back at large changes, they were always there, but events can accelerate them. Things like equality, there might be an event that happens that brings it back into focus, right? And the conversation gets triggered again, right? About addressing that. Context immediately. So, but even though it might have been there for a while, for example, if I think of the current context, which everyone's kind of tired of, is, COVID, it was a disruptive event, right? But it brought into context immediately how interconnected of a world we are. Right? Families, you can't visit your family. It's been 2 years since you visit your family. And you suddenly realize how disruptive such an event is, how interconnected we are. And of course, it affects companies. You've seen all the disruption of economies happening because of COVID, right? They're calling it the work revolution, right? Where people are now talking about well-being being so important. And they were always there, right? It just got put into context by this. Right. So a lot of these things, I think, and even one thing that comes to mind when we talk about COVID is in the beginning part of COVID, there were photos about how people could see the Himalayas at a distance, things. And so all the climate change aspect came in. But, back to your question, I think the idea is how we can understand core principles or values and be able to apply it boldly, right, in the current environment. We need to, as organizations or leaders, I think we need to take a stand. I really think it is important, it is responsible for a leader or organization to actually take a stand, even though there may be controversial issues, in such a way that reflects their core values, either of the organization or of the person, if it's a leader, right? And core principles in my understanding of this, they don't change too much. So if I look back again at the COVID example, interconnectedness, we're all connected, is a core principle, right? There is connection. The idea of balance, of equality, that's a core principle that we should try to uphold, right? Coming from the heart. So if you talked about LGBTQ or you talk about women equality, when you look at it from the heart, we don't try to discriminate, right? The idea of equality and love. So the core principles, I think, if we are able to apply in a courageous way, in an authentic way, whether it's for an organization or a leader, I think it does a lot. You don't even have to look at it from the lens of reputation management, but just from the viewpoint of this is what we really stand for. Right. And I think that is the reflection that's needed to determine where is my stand on this issue, right? How do I apply my core values to this particular issue in the current environment?
And it's beautiful what you say, Prem, earlier on, as you started answering this question. We all have an understanding of things, and we grow and evolve, and our understanding changes. And if it doesn't apply to the current context or situation, we have to be open to change. And so thank you for that great answer and just reminding us of that. Moving to the first part of the question, which is, the topic, again, in this Heartful Leader context, how do we address our past challenges? Is there any steps that you would recommend?
Yes. There is, first, I think we need to be aware of our past challenges to be able to start addressing them, right? I think to be aware in all these aspects, whether it's a leader or an organization, I think the key aspect is to be able to reflect. Right? We really need to be able to, whether it takes the form of introspection, if you're such a person who tends to contemplate and introspect, or we look for feedback from the environment, right? Whether it is the people we work with or just the environment itself, that's the feedback, right? I think that feedback is really, with that reflection and feedback, we may identify things that we need to change. It might show that there are certain behaviors or things that we might have said, the way we acted, that hurt others, or we need to improve, right? So in one way, you can think of it as, if someone were to characterize me as a leader or as an organization, what would my reputation be, right? Or if I were to give feedback to someone like me, from an objective perspective, what would my feedback be, right? So I think that reflection and those reflective questions are important. How do I characterize myself? And then really the best way to change is to focus on what you want to become, right? Really, it takes some time to reflect on that and identify, really, this is what I would like to be, right? Forget whether it's going to be hard, how many steps, but I want people to think of my vision as this. You want to really understand that, interiorize that, right? Then we start identifying specific things that get us towards that, as to what we want to become. Right. It's always, once you identify what the final vision might be like, then we identify step-by-step changes. The ways and means, atomic habits, bite-sized chunks that you can, achieve, and then keep building upon success after success.
Sure.
Right. I think the reflection is the first part of the whole thing. Right. Beyond that, once you identify a specific area, right, now it's always easy to, let's say I want to be able to listen more openly, right? Really listen. And communication, acknowledging that communication may take various forms. Some people might be saying something, but you, just by their emotions and their body language, you're able to get much more, right? Then once you have the feedback and you know what you're trying to change, you acknowledge it, right? The willingness to acknowledge that, okay, yes, I'm sincerely sorry. This is what I'm going to do. This is change. And then really start acting, show it by what you're doing, right? Just not by what you intend to do or what you're saying, but really show it by what you're doing. And then reinforce it. And the heartfulness practices can really help in getting to that inner state that enables you to do all this.
Absolutely. Great guidance there, actually. Yet it's hard to see. Some managers are, poor leaders, right? So what are the signs of a mediocre leader, who needs to really improve his game? Is there something that we could learn?
It kind of relates to I'll just give simple examples, and I think all of us will instantly realize, right? And these are real world examples of somebody who is more of a, so say someone has a team and they're not as appreciative of your accomplishment. Let's say I'm working with you and I keep nagging you about, is this done or is this not done, but really don't understand what you have accomplished. And I'm not acknowledging it, I'm not appreciating it, but only keep focusing on things that are not done or you didn't do well, right? I mean, that's pretty bad for a relationship to begin with, right? Out of touch. Let's say I'm completely out of touch. I really don't understand what you would like to work on or what is your interest, but I sort of manage from a pedestal, right?
Right.
Really bad for trust in relationships, right? Setbacks, how you react to bad news, I think really says what the character of a person is. If someone fails in your team, how you react to that, how you are encouraging or otherwise, inspirational or otherwise, really, gives them a window into your character, right? So you can see how a manager, so that is something, if they start really not caring about you as a person, but they start promising on behalf of you, it is very easy for the team members to think that, oh, he's maybe just going for his next promotion. He's not really. So at the end of the day, I mean, I'm just giving examples that we've all might have seen. And at the end of the day, the person has to feel like they're working for you because they, are inspired by you as a leader, as opposed to just the tasks, right? There has to be such a environment that is created.
Great examples there, Prem, and that's what we're looking to hear and learn as well from you. Again, I also truly believe that it's at when things go wrong, how we respond to it, that's when our true character comes in, right? And that's when, if you respond rather than react, and bring people along and take them forward, and I think they are just great leaders, and such a person really stand tall. So I love the answer that you had shared and the examples. Now, moving on, what actually do you think, prevents such a person, a leader in a workplace or in any walk of life, from seeing the need to change and, making the necessary changes?
Actually, that is probably the most important question here, right? It could be, at the very outset there, it could be a complete lack of self-awareness, right? We just are not aware. And I'm not saying, and it is true for all of us, right? We're all trying to improve, and we occasionally become aware of things that we need to improve, and then we realize, oh, I was completely blindsided. So I think the reason for some of this can be, first is, I think, emotional entanglement.
That's a big one.
That's a big one, right? And so many situations I can think of in my own personal life where this completely blindsides you, right? If you have a very strong liking or a strong dislike to something, right, you tend to you get clouded by that. Right? You tend to not be able to listen or beyond that. It just completely clouds. You're hearing what you want to hear, right?
That's right.
And I know we'll be talking about mindfulness cleaning practice and how that can relate to this, right? So that can, or something where you are afraid of, right? If you're really anxious about something or afraid of something, you tend to, your whole vision becomes very narrow, right? You don't tend to be open to possibilities. You think of them as threats to your existence or your agenda, right? Whereas eventually, if you had been open, you might have actually found that is actually better for the whole thing, right? So that is one. And as I mentioned, emotional intelligence is very related to that. So this is where you are completely, tangled in your own emotions. But let's say you're getting free of that, you still have to be able to tune in to the other person's, what they may be feeling, right?
Yes.
That's when you're really able to listen. So you have to be able to empathize, not just listen to their words, but really just see what is being communicated, right? Then you become, we're better able to receive feedback. right? Right. The other thing, let's say you're gotten some feedback, right? And now you're trying to change. The other thing could be just lack of courage, right? Or inertia even. You don't want to invest the energy. It may involve, maybe it involves 5 people, right? And this happens a lot in real situations at the workplace. It's not just one person, the whole dynamic. There is something missing in that dynamic of people. There is not as much engagement. Now, one person needs to feel that they need to take the responsibility, take ownership to start changing this, right? And that needs a lot of energy investment. So that is that, right? And then just plain ego, right? And ego can take subtle, gross forms where you can say, I know what I'm doing, or it can be very subtle, right? You might think that you're helping everybody, but maybe you're just taking upon the charge and not asking. If I say I know what I need to do for the team, I don't need to consult Lakshmi. I'm doing it from the right intention, but then you might feel left out, saying he didn't even ask my opinion, right?
That's
so
right.
it can be subtle, right? So there's a lot of things that can, and for some people it may be just out of their comfort zone, right? So relationships, to talk, just to say how they might just say, I just want to keep this very transactional, or they're not just, it's not in their comfort zone to open up. And so I think it can be a lot of things, but I think some of the things that really stand out is that emotional entanglement, just lack of courage, being able to refine our ego, being empathetic so that you can actually listen.
Good points, Prem. So are there tools and techniques that will help us to heal one's reputation? I know you briefly touched upon this technique of cleaning.
Yeah. So I think that's a great segue to that question. And really, if you think about, I'll talk a little about the core heartfulness practice of cleaning and rejuvenation. If you take this first issue that I talked about, emotional entanglement, right? I think that's where really cleaning helps. And what happens in our normal day-to-day events and experiences and interactions with people, if it goes to our liking, we get that positive feedback loop and it says, okay, I like this more. If it doesn't go to our liking, we take some emotional imprint out of it that's negative, right? And over a period of time, this can become a pattern, and it can become a pattern of our behavior, right? And so we start going down this very fixed path, and we are kind of not very open, or in fact, even afraid to move away or out of that path.
Right.
And so it becomes so habitual that we are not able to really listen to feedback, or not even willing to reflect upon what we might have to change.
Right.
This is where really heartfulness, in terms of real practice, heartfulness cleaning comes in. We are able to remove some of this emotional baggage within us, if you will. And we feel that once it's lifted off, there is openness, there is more space, right? There is a sense of lightness within. It also changes how we view things. If I go back to the other example that I gave you, that the fear of me versus others, right? Do I need to put energy to fix this group dynamic, right? Because what I thought of as, that's going to be an emotionally exhausting endeavor, doesn't feel like that much anymore, right? Because this kind of stuff takes more energy than physical energy, right? This is emotional energy. And cleaning really gives us a lot of, that lightness and openness, right? Our communication just improves, and we're able to do all of this better, right? So it certainly makes us, it makes us more reflective and willing to change, to address your earlier question of, are you able to see what to change? Are you willing to change? And it also allows us to be, agents of change, if you will, if it's a group dynamic.
Yeah. And again, coming from or in an objective way, without emotions, I think that's when we have more clarity in the mind, right? And we are able to make better decisions. So certainly,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
agree with you on that point about cleaning. And there was this one question that a friend of mine did ask when we were kind of, discussing this topic. Now, should leaders, who are upgrading their skills, share it with their staff, or should they hide their efforts? Even in terms of when you mentioned about the heartfulness practice, Prem, there may be people who are practicing different contemplative practices at work, and sometimes they're shy to share it with their friends or family, for that matter. So things like that, along those lines. Could you answer your thought on this question?
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I think leaders should share, right?
Mm.
I think if we go back to this whole topic of reputation, and I think leaders have an opportunity to influence a team culture, right? A team culture, I think, really sets the environment for well-being of the employee, the happiness of an employee, and how much they're willing to put their brilliant self in there, right?
Mm.
And if you go back to the three things about the three pillars of reputation we talked about values, right? We
Yeah.
talked about expertise, we talked about awareness, right?
Mm.
I think by sharing, in a very authentic and open way, right, you become more, vulnerable and relatable to everybody, right? Saying,
Yes.
this is what I'm working on, right? In terms of, these are my values. I'm courageous in saying, this is what my core value is. You may not agree, you may agree, right? And but I want to say, this is my value, right? And I think that shows courageous authenticity, and and you're being relatable, right? And I think that encourages everybody to have that same open culture, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and it inspires them also, saying that, okay, I can, also talk about my core values. I can start improving myself, right? And I think
Yes.
this is equally applicable to organizations, right?
True.
Being transparent. Now, when you talk about heartfulness practices, about if they are trying to do some contemplative practice and how I think it applies there as well. But I think we share it in the viewpoint of common humanity, common good. We are interconnected, the heart, the things which are more unifying, where we are trying to address a certain, it doesn't have to be a particular contemplative practice, but what we are really trying to achieve, which is being authentic, then I think it unites people.
Yes. Great answer. I did realize that after I asked my question, there were two parts to it, and you answered both of them very well, actually. And truly, Prem, I like the part where you say about leaders sharing their vulnerability as well, to admit that yes, I have made a mistake, and this is how I've learned, or this is how I've grown and improved through that challenge. Does inspire people. And again, those are when we really speak from our conviction. I truly believe that is when we touch more hearts.
Yes.
So beautiful what you shared, and great discussion on this topic. I didn't have any further questions, but there may be some questions in our chat box from our audience, which Prem, and on the day, he will answer them again through the chat window. And this is again a great time to experience this heartfulness cleaning or the rejuvenation process that Prem had explained earlier on. So I welcome everybody to give this a try. Now, please join me. It will be a guided cleaning session. So sit comfortably and close your eyes and just follow my instructions. Close your eyes and feel relaxed. You are mentally cleaning complexities and impurities from your system. Think that they are leaving you. Settle down with the thought that all complexities and impurities are going away. Think that they are going out of your whole system, through your back, from the top of your head to your tailbone. Mentally suggest that the impurities and complexities are going out of your system, from your back, in the form of smoke or vapor. It is an active yet gentle process. Do not dwell on specific events or things you want to get rid of. Simply brush them off. Now gently accelerate the cleaning with confidence and faith, and apply your will as needed. If your attention drifts and you find yourself involved in other thoughts, gently bring your attention back to the cleaning process. Apply your will as needed. As the impressions are leaving from the back, you will start to feel lightness in your heart. When complexities are gone, you are feeling simple. Impurities are gone, and you're feeling pure. Feeling of lightness is entering every cell, every corner of your body. Your whole body is now completely purified and has become full of light. As the impressions are leaving from the back, you will start to feel lightness in your heart. The rejuvenation process is now complete. And you may gently open your eyes when you feel ready to do so. Now you'll find that particularly when there is lots going on in your life, this rejuvenation process really helps in clearing up things in our minds, like Prem had mentioned, especially all those emotions, the guilt, the anger, the excitement, whatever it may be. Really, if the emotions are gone, it helps us to think freely, live fully in the present moment, also strengthening our willpower. So it's just a great, powerful technique. Like always, if you'd like to take this forward and experience the heartfulness practice and bring it and make it a part of your life, do reach out to us at pearl@heartfulness.org. So another great session with you, Prem. Thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I love the simplistic way you explain things. It really goes straight into our hearts. So thank you again. It was thoroughly a great experience with you. And I hope you enjoyed the session on Pearl as well.
Thank you so much. Loved being part of this and had a great conversation. So thank you, Lakshmi.
Thank you. And truly you have emphasized that there is no greater value than a positive reputation. And in your writing, for this webinar, I just wanted to quote that at this point to everybody, that this is what Prem said: the growth of a leader can be directly linked to their humility, listening, reflection, thought, and action. And if you think about it, those are just powerful words. And truly, we remember people who reflect all these or demonstrate this in their lives. And really, they don't have to brag about themselves because their friends and family, or the reputation talks or tells stories about them and their character. So I think that's what we should strive to be. So let's keep on reflecting on what we can and improve in ourselves, and taking steps in that direction to improve and have really a great, impeccable reputation and growth. So good luck to all. We look forward to seeing you in our next webinar. Bye for now.